Certainly TTIP will be positive for all sizes of companies and businesses, and as a consequence also for employees and consumers, as we see it. Will there be only winners and no losers? No. Will the ratio be better than normally? The answer is a clear yes. And I think I've never seen an agreement, an FTA agreement or FTA and investment agreement like we have it here.
It is a very strong momentum. The momentum is very strong in Germany. And Germany is not an anti-trade country. The momentum is enormous in the UK. And UK depends on trade. It's very big in France. So this opposition has to be taken extremely seriously.
In what we see around the TTIP negotiations and the information that we have is that there is a risk that the standards that currently are applicable to consumer protection and other areas of protection could be lowered. And now it's also very, very important that you do not consider this to be a United States versus Europe debate, because we are not like Europe is the best place to be for a consumer.
But if we just would be able to tolerate that both sides have reasonable standards and we just accept and tolerate these standards, it would help us a lot. And 50% of all procedures, knees, hips, whatever, are done on my machines. You don't want to go through the process of the FDA. It's awful. I mean, it's awful. I can deliver easily here in Europe and nobody dies from my procedures. If you go to the US, it takes you a year and a half to just be classified to be able to deliver in the health system.
You don't add ISDS. We don't need it. We just don't need it.
This is also about investment. And in order to generate investment, you need to protect investment. So the answer, do we need it? The answer is a clear yes. And I think the approach is too simplistic to say, let's forget about ISDS, then we have a deal. I think the question should be, let's try to do a better ISDS, because nobody says that what we are having at the time being, and by the way, which will continue to exist. We have it in 1,400 agreements, we have it in an energy charter, we have it in a number of things, and it will continue to exist, and nobody says it's perfect. There is improvements to be done in transparency, there's improvements to be done in the rules of procedure for the arbitration and so on and so on. Are governments to be held responsible for mistakes they make and breaches of international law if they do it in a discriminatory way? The answer is a clear yes. Because otherwise you will not generate investment because you cannot protect it.
It is about discrimination because only foreign investors can use it. It's totally discriminatory.
No. It is about discrimination because it protects foreign investors against discrimination.
No.
If I listen to my companies, they tell me this thing was invented to protect us, not to hurt us. And the way is it only, again, if we want to put a role model, if we really want to put a platform out there which is good for all agreements, then I think it should be in.
Business would be protected by ISDS, but we are defending the public interest and the democratic system in our countries. So we are not just saying...
But where's the democratic system
Well, the democratic system have to go through the normal process. And if we cannot, between two blocks like EU and US, do that, then we have a serious problem.
We are very much ready to improve the instrument. But do we listen to the argument to say we cannot have any kind of ISDS because this is the end of democracy? No, I don't listen because this is simply wrong.
We are supposed to advise the Commission, but what we see is that we are never being asked any advice. So, of course, sometimes we push advice because we see something, we flag something, we tell it. But then we tell it to the Commission. But we cannot even really work as a group. It's like individuals within the group that provide a comment, but it has not been discussed within the group. So the group as itself doesn't work as a group to advise. You know, we even don't try to have consensus because we really don't discuss about the topics. So, and then if a comment is being made by the member of the advisory group to the Commission, we don't know what is going to happen to that comment. So we don't receive any feedback about, yes, it's a valid or it's a stupid remark or whatever, or you're not well informed.
On the contrary, this is the most transparent agreement we ever had. I mean, there's a number of consultations. We have this advisory group, which might be improved. I would not even disagree. But we have to acknowledge that we have more than we ever had.
If we don't trust America and America doesn't trust Europe and we give it a little freedom, we will never examine where the line is and what could be bad or good. We have to take the trust that when we accept the other one's rules, that they are pretty high standards.
I don't say we like organic and we hate chemicals. It's not one is better than the other. It's just different approaches to life, to the world. And this is because you spoke about technical barriers versus society. This is the thing. It's about consumer preferences.
It's about eliminating costly, unnecessary duplications. It's not about lowering standards, and I think this has been very clearly said on both sides of the Atlantic. It's about eliminating costly, unnecessary duplications. And of course, this is a hell of a work.
And we know that it has to be finalized by the end of next year. After that, it's dead. So I think it would be maybe more realistic to have a narrow scope and to have a success on that scope rather than to have it dead at the end of next year.
On public procurement, you're very clear. We always said to our friends on the US side, we will need clear progress in public procurement on federal and also on sub-federal level in order to make this a success in Europe. This will be very difficult, but I think there is aspects which can give hope in the Canada agreement. And again, I mean, I'm very surprised about the debate we're having in Europe. I think the US negotiators are much more preoccupied on what might be in the Canada agreement than we should be in Europe. But the very unhelpful debate we're having in Europe. I don't hear any debate in the US. So sometimes I'm not so sure whether our way of acting in these stories is so smart.
Yeah, thank you all and good night.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. I agree with you on the color.